So today I'm going to end up with a little more odds and ends within Illustrator and kind of finish it off for the time. So we're going to cover some little things that we kind of like can work with within Illustrator that are a little bit, well, useful. All right, so one thing that we kind of avoided at the very beginning where you had the pen tool, but underneath of that was the curvature tool. Now, the curvature tool is kind of like almost a very easy pen tool to kind of like use. It still has the same type of feeling where you go from dot to dot to dot to dot. So how we start that is just basically just go ahead and click, just like a normal pen tool. Click and put in a point. If I go up here and I put another point, it'll create this line. But as you can see, if I move my cursor along here without holding down the button, you'll see that it creates this kind of like arc. So you kind of see an arc as you're drawing. So if I go ahead and just click, again, it'll form that type of arc. And when I go up to finish it, if I just go ahead and click with it, it will basically finish off that shape. Now, it's very interesting how it does create these types of shapes here. If I move my cursor up towards a line and I can click, hold, and drag. I can go anywhere I want to, and I can move any point on the fly, just like I am here. Now, what if you wanted to actually form some kind of like straight lines for some things? So, if I were to hold down the Alt Option key on a Mac and Alt on the PC, and I go ahead and click on a point, and then I go another and click on another point, you'll see that what you do is you create a straight line between those 2 points. If you do that again, you can go to another point and create another straight line. And at any point here, you can move that line around to be able to use that in any fashion you so choose. Now, of course, you can go ahead and add more in here, curves, if you so want to add more in there. Okay. All right. So there's that one. That is the curvature tool. Okay. Now we've talked about, or you've seen the paintbrush, which actually has a really interesting. It can be used a lot of times. If I go ahead and click, hold, and drag, you can create this kind of like shape that looks like that. You can click, hold, and drag again. If I go ahead and hit the brackets above the Enter key, you can see I can make the brush bigger or smaller depending on what I want to make the line be. So just like so. Now what's interesting about these is that these particular paintbrush do not create fill shapes. It does create lines. So again, at any point here, I could choose my white arrow and I can manipulate these points to do what I want them to do. So like this. Now, if I go to the paintbrush and I click, hold, and drag, you see there's a paintbrush. There's a blob brush tool, which we'll talk about in a minute. Pencil tool, which acts pretty much the same as a brush tool. And then there's the smooth tool, which the smooth tool can actually do a lot. So with the smooth tool, this little bracket kind of comes up, and basically it gives you how hard or how curved you want that line. So if I move my cursor towards a line that I have selected like this, and I click, hold, and drag, you can see what it does is it kind of like smoothens out. The more brushes I kind of like put down on it, the smoother it's going to get. It's like so. Okay. Now the blob brush actually does what we said, where it actually, instead of like the paintbrush, it will paint in lines like strokes here. But blob brush actually does a little bit different. Still, we can use the bracket keys to get the brush to go any size it wants or you want. And you go ahead and, well, right now you have to have a fill, so I'm going to hit the double arrow here. All right. And I'm going to choose the blob brush again and reverse that to fill. And I'm going to go ahead and click, hold, and drag. And I'm going to fill it in to whatever I want it to be, like so. And I can add to it. I can do whatever I want with it. So blob brush actually is a very, it's a useful tool, but be careful because if you do actually use it with the same color and it overlaps the one color, it will set to fill it. So if I click on this, you'll see it's one very. Now, if I go to my blob brush and I do change the color to something else, you know, without selecting, let's say, go to the blob brush, changes something different, drastically different. Let's go with that. And I click, hold, and drag and paint onto it here. You know, and I click, hold, and drag. It'll create another shape, like so. All right. So that is a blob brush. All right. So some of the things we have down here, one of them is called the width tool, which sometimes it's like when you create a particular shape or line like this, you want to give it some kind of structure. So if I choose the width tool and I come here and I click, hold, and drag, or go to a particular line. Why am I screwing up here? I'm going to go with my pen tool because it doesn't work with the brush tool. So go to the pen tool here and we'll use the width tool and we'll go ahead and click, hold, and drag. And what that does is it creates variation within your line, like so. You can make things a little bit smaller, whatever, but what it does is still maintains that path, but you can variate the line a little bit more. Okay. All right. Well, the last thing I'm going to show you is going back to my text here. If I go ahead and put in my name, let's say, and I increase the size, like so. If I wanted to create some kind of like arc, for instance, if I go up to Effect and go to what says Warp, there's an option called Arc. And with that option here, we got the warp options, which is arc here. You can choose arc lower, arc upper, arch, bulge, shell lower, shell upper, flag, wave, fish, you know, and so on and so forth. And you can adjust these things as needed. So it's like if I want to adjust them a little bit more, I can. And you'll see a little bit different use for those. And once you're done, you can hit OK. Now that does set up, you can see it is currently live text. So it's at some point, I could add whatever I want and it will take on that warp. Now to break that away from that, I can go up to Object and Expand Appearance. Now that does serve as more of a create outlines and apply the effect type thing. So it skips kind of like one step. And basically it'll set to Expand Appearance. Now I can go to Object and Ungroup, and I can choose a new letter and tweak it and do whatever I want with it. Okay. So those are the basics within Illustrator. Hope you learned a lot for that. And I will talk to you in the next one.